A black woman pulls up in a modest sedan dressed in plain clothes. The local sheriff approaches her vehicle, suspicious and aggressive. His questions turn hostile, his tone disrespectful. Suddenly, without warning, he punches her through the open window. What he doesn't know is that she's no ordinary citizen. And when you find out who she truly is, you won't believe what happens next. If you believe that nobody deserves to be assaulted because of their race, hit the subscribe button now. This story delivers the most jaw-dropping instant karma you'll witness all year. Pinewood County had always been a place of contradictions. Sprawling farmland bordered by lush forests, warm hospitality laced with cold suspicion, and a history that never seemed to stay in the past. For locals like Sheriff Denton Rawls, this land was sacred, untouchable, and he'd spent 23 years making sure it stayed that way. Samira Ellis navigated her government-issued Toyota Camry down the winding back roads, the GPS signal fading in and out like her patience. 3 hours behind schedule and still 40 minutes from the rendezvous point. The rural Virginia landscape might have been beautiful if she weren't so focused on the mission parameters cycling through her mind. 8 years in the CIA's Special Activities Division had taught her to blend in anywhere, from Syrian war zones to Moscow ballrooms. But somehow, these forgotten American backroads made her hyper-aware of her skin color in a way international assignments never did. She checked her watch. 10:43 p.m. The asset would be waiting, nervous, ready to pass along intelligence that could dismantle a domestic terror cell with international connections. Not exactly how she'd planned to spend her Friday night, but the intel was time-sensitive. Director Harrington had personally requested her for this operation, citing her unparalleled extraction record. The flashing blue lights appeared suddenly in her rearview mirror. Samira's training kicked in automatically. Slow down, pull over, hands visible. Standard procedure, nothing to worry about. She'd memorized her cover story perfectly. Lost tourist, looking for the nearest motel. Her credentials were buried in her go bag, accessible but hidden. Protocol was clear. Maintain cover unless absolutely necessary. As she pulled onto the gravel shoulder, Samira noted the patrol car's position, the lack of dash cam, the absence of other vehicles. The officer approached slowly, flashlight beam sweeping across her car, lingering too long on her face. Even before he reached her window, something in his posture set off warning signals. 20 years of law enforcement experience in Sheriff Rawls' gait, but none of the professional detachment, something personal in the way he squared his shoulders. "License and registration," he drawled, the flashlight beam deliberately aimed at her eyes. "You're a long way from wherever you belong, ain't you?" Samira squinted against the harsh light, maintaining her practiced calm. "Evening, officer. Is there a problem?" She reached slowly for her glove compartment. "I didn't say you could move." Sheriff Rawls snapped, his free hand moving to his holster. "Hands where I can see them." Samira complied immediately, noting every detail. The sheriff's nameplate, his agitated breathing, the slight tremor in his trigger hand. Not standard procedure. Not even close. "What brings you to Pinewood County at this hour?" His voice dripped with suspicion, eyes narrowing as they scanned her face. "We don't get many visitors like you." The atmosphere thickened with each passing second. Sheriff Rawls circled the vehicle like a predator, the beam of his flashlight invasive, deliberate. Samira remained still, heart steady despite the escalating danger. She'd faced down warlords and assassins. This country sheriff was nothing in comparison. Yet something in his eyes triggered her deepest instincts. This man was unpredictable. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered, voice hardening. "May I ask why, officer? I wasn't speeding." "Step out now." Each word punctuated with menace. Samira calculated her options. The asset was waiting. The mission was critical. Compliance might be faster than confrontation. Slowly, she opened the door, stepping out with deliberate movements. "Hands on the hood," he barked, moving closer than protocol would dictate. She placed her palms flat against the warm metal, keeping her breathing even. "Sir, I'd like to know what violation—" "You people always think you deserve explanations," Rawls interrupted, stepping uncomfortably close. His breath smelled of whiskey and chewing tobacco. "Always demanding special treatment." Samira's training screamed warnings. This wasn't a traffic stop. This was something else entirely. "Officer, I'm simply passing through. If there's no violation—" "I decide what's a violation around here." His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "And you being here, that's a violation." Behind them, a car approached, headlights cutting through the darkness. Sheriff Rawls glanced back, momentarily distracted. The passing vehicle slowed briefly before continuing down the road. Witnesses. Potential complications. When Rawls turned back, his expression had hardened into something cold and calculating. "Got anything in that car I should know about? Drugs? Weapons?" "No, sir. Just traveling. Yeah, that's what they all say." His hand roughly grabbed her shoulder, spinning her to face him. "We've had problems with outsiders lately. Terrorists, smugglers. You fit in any of those descriptions?" Samira felt the situation slipping toward inevitability. Her mind ran through extraction protocols, assessing risks. The mission was paramount, but survival came first. She had 10 seconds before this escalated beyond recovery. "I have identification," she said calmly. "If you'd allow me to—" That's when the sheriff's fist connected with her face, a sharp crack that echoed across the empty road. The punch landed hard, snapping Samira's head sideways. Her vision blurred momentarily, the taste of copper filling her mouth. Time slowed, training taken over. She absorbed the impact, cataloging the damage. Split lip, possible contusion, nothing broken, while her body instinctively shifted into a defensive stance. "That's for disrespecting my authority," Sheriff Rawls growled, shaking out his hand. "You people never learn." Samira straightened, wiping blood from her lip with calculated precision. 8 years of CIA combat training, 3 tours in active conflict zones, and specialized hand-to-hand instruction from Israeli Mossad flashed through her muscle memory. She could disable him in 4 moves, but protocol dictated restraint unless life-threatening. This had just become life-threatening. "Officer," she said with eerie calm, "I strongly advise you to step back." "Or what?" he sneered, hand moving toward his holster. "You threatening an officer of the law?" The decision matrix completed in her mind. Mission parameters: compromised. Cover: compromised. Threat level: escalating. The asset would need to be extracted through secondary channels. Now her priority was containment. "I'm giving you one chance to de-escalate this situation," Samira stated, her voice shifting to something harder, official. "Stand down." Sheriff Rawls laughed, the sound ugly in the night air. "You're gonna regret ever driving through my county." As his hand closed around his weapon, Samira moved. A blur of precision, her right hand deflecting his wrist while her left delivered a controlled strike to his sternum. Before he could react, her palm connected with his jaw in a precise counterstrike, hard enough to stun, controlled enough to prevent permanent damage. Sheriff Rawls staggered backward, eyes wide with shock. The transformation before him was immediate and total. The woman he'd assaulted seconds ago had vanished, replaced by something lethal and precise. His hand still rested on his holster, but something in her eyes made him hesitate. "Federal agent," Samira stated, her voice carrying a deadly calm as she straightened to her full height. "Remove your hand from your weapon, Sheriff Rawls." He froze, confusion and anger warring across his face. "You're lying. Let me see ID. The moment you assaulted me, you forfeited the right to demands." Samira's gaze never wavered. "You are currently interfering with a classified federal operation. Your next actions will determine whether you face felony charges or treason." "Bullshit," he spat, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Samira reached slowly into her jacket, extracting a black leather wallet. She flipped it open, revealing the distinctive eagle emblem of the Central Intelligence Agency. "Special Activities Division. Operational Clearance Level 6. 15 federal statutes protect my mission and my person. You've violated at least 8 of them in the past 5 minutes. The color drained from Rawls' face, his hand finally dropping from his weapon. I couldn't have known that I was federal or that I was human." Samira's voice cut like steel. "Which excuse are you reaching for, Sheriff?" Headlights approached again, slowing at the scene. Samira noted the vehicle. County police, not state. Local reinforcements. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Your backup won't help you," she said quietly. "Not with this." The second patrol car pulled up, lights flashing. A young deputy stepped out, hand resting nervously on his holster. "Everything okay, Sheriff?" he called, eyes darting between Rawls and Samira. Sheriff Rawls opened his mouth, then closed it. Blood trickled from where Samira's counterstrike had split his lip, a mirror image of the injury he'd inflicted on her. "Deputy," Samira addressed the newcomer directly, voice clear and commanding. "I'm Special Agent Samira Ellis, Central Intelligence Agency. Sheriff Rawls has assaulted a federal officer and interfered with a classified operation. I'm invoking Executive Order 12333, Section 2.6. This incident is now under federal jurisdiction." The deputy's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I'm initiating an immediate suspension of Sheriff Rawls' authority under Title 18, Section 242 of the U.S. Code." Samira reached into her pocket, producing her secure phone. "This conversation is being recorded and transmitted to Langley. Deputy, your name and badge number, please." Deputy James Mercer, badge 4572, he stammered. "Deputy Mercer, you're now witness to a federal intervention. Sheriff Rawls will be placed in your custody pending federal officer's arrival." "She's lying," Rawls growled, finding his voice. "This is my jurisdiction." "Not anymore," Samira interrupted, her phone screen illuminating with an incoming call. "Director Harrington is on the line. Would you like to explain to him why his operation was compromised by your prejudice?" Sheriff Rawls' face contorted with fury and fear. "You can't do this to me, not in my own county." "I just did," Samira replied. Director Harrington's voice crackled through the secure line, each word precise and measured. "Agent Ellis, confirmation code, Sierra Echo 9 Delta. Acknowledged, Director. Confirmation Echo Charlie 3 Alpha," Samira responded, never taking her eyes off Sheriff Rawls. "Your GPS shows you're 40 minutes from the extraction point. Explain." "Mission compromised. Local law enforcement intervention turned violent. I've been physically assaulted by Sheriff Denton Rawls of Pinewood County. Situation contained, but unstable." The line went silent for 3 heartbeats. When the director spoke again, His voice had dropped to a glacial calm that made even Samira straighten. "Put me on speaker." She complied, holding the phone where both officers could hear. "This is Director Marcus Harrington, Central Intelligence Agency. To whom am I speaking besides Agent Ellis?" Deputy Mercer swallowed visibly. "Deputy James Mercer, sir, and Sheriff Denton Rawls." "Sheriff Rawls," the director's voice was dangerously soft. "Did you strike one of my agents?" Rawls shifted uncomfortably, glancing between the phone and Samira's face. The reality of his situation was finally sinking in. There was a misunderstanding. She was uncooperative. "Answer the question directly, Sheriff," Harrington interrupted. "Yes or no?" "She didn't identify herself," Rawls protested. "For all I knew." "That's not how this works, Sheriff." Harrington cut him off again. "My agents operate under classified protocols. They don't need to identify themselves to you, ever. What you've done isn't just assault. It's interference with national security." Samira watched Rawls process this information, his expression shifting from defiance to the first flickers of genuine fear. "Deputy Mercer," Harrington continued, "I'm dispatching federal agents to your location. They'll arrive in approximately 20 minutes. Until then, you're temporarily granted authority over this situation. Sheriff Rawls is to be detained, for his protection as much as ours." "Sir?" Mercer looked uncertainly at his superior. "That's an order, Deputy." Harrington's voice left no room for debate. "Your cooperation now will be noted favorably in what's about to become a very complex federal investigation." Mercer straightened, professionalism overriding loyalty. "Yes, sir." Sheriff Rawls took a step back. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "Sheriff," Samira interrupted, her voice quiet but carrying an unmistakable threat. "You assaulted me without provocation because of what I look like. Don't compound your error by resisting federal authority." "You hit me back," Rawls shouted, pointing to his bloodied lip. "Defensive countermeasure by a trained federal agent responding to unprovoked assault," Samira replied evenly. "Every action since you approached my vehicle has been recorded by multiple satellite feeds. Your dash cam may conveniently malfunction, but our technology doesn't." Rawls' eyes widened at this revelation. His gaze darted to the night sky, then back to Samira. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "Special Activities Division doesn't bluff, Sheriff." Samira slipped her phone back into her pocket. "Deputy Mercer, I believe Director Harrington gave you an order?" Mercer nodded slowly, then turned to his superior. "Sheriff Rawls, I need to ask you to surrender your weapon and come with me to the cruiser." Rawls stood frozen, 23 years of unchecked authority crumbling around him. For a moment, Samira thought he might resist. His hand twitched toward his holster, but something in her steady gaze made him reconsider. "This isn't over," he muttered as he slowly unholstered his weapon, handling it to Mercer grip first. "Actually, Sheriff," Samira replied with cold certainty, "for you, it is." The federal SUVs arrived exactly 17 minutes later. 3 black Suburbans with tinted windows and government plates. 6 agents in tactical gear secured the perimeter, while a silver-haired man in an impeccable suit approached Samira. "Agent Ellis," he said, offering his hand. "Assistant Director Vance. The director sent me personally." "Sir," Samira acknowledged, shaking his hand. "The situation is contained, but the mission timeline has been compromised." "We've already deployed Team 2 to your rendezvous point," Vance assured her. "The asset is secure. Now we need to clean up this unfortunate incident." He glanced toward the patrol car, where Sheriff Rawls sat handcuffed in the back seat, his expression thunderous. "We have options," Vance continued, lowering his voice. "This can be handled quietly. The agency prefers minimal publicity. We could classify the incident, offer the sheriff a dignified resignation, avoid unnecessary complications." Samira understood immediately. The diplomatic solution. The path of least resistance. The way things had always been handled. Powerful men protected from their own worst actions, systems preserved rather than reformed. "With all due respect, sir," she said carefully, "Sheriff Rawls didn't just assault me. He violated his oath of office. How many others has he treated this way who didn't have federal badges to protect them?" Vance studied her face, noting the bruising already forming along her jaw. "You understand the alternative will be messy, public. There will be resistance, backlash. Your name could be dragged through the mud." Samira thought of the fear in Deputy Mercer's eyes. Not fear of her, but fear of Rawls. The pattern was clear. "Some messes need to be exposed, sir," she said firmly. "I'll take full responsibility." Assistant Director Vance regarded Samira silently for a long moment before nodding once, decisive. "Very well, full protocol it is." He turned to one of the tactical agents. "Agent Reeves, document everything. I want statements, photographs, satellite imagery, the works." The machinery of federal justice began moving with ruthless efficiency. Agents photographed Samira's injuries and took her statement. Others began interviewing Deputy Mercer, whose nervous glances toward the patrol car revealed volumes about the department's culture. Sheriff Rawls watched from the back seat, his initial bluster fading as the full weight of federal presence settled around him. When two agents approached to transfer him to a federal vehicle, his facade finally cracked. "This is my county," he protested, voice rising as they escorted him from the patrol car. "You can't just come in here and—" "Sheriff Rawls," Samira interrupted, stepping forward. "Before you continue, there's something you should know." The agents paused, allowing her to approach. Rawls glared at her, hatred and fear warring in his eyes. "What you've done tonight isn't just assault," she said, her voice level and clear in the night air. "It's a violation of everything that badge represents, and it's not the first time, is it?" Something flickered in his expression, surprise, guilt, or both. "We've already accessed your department's sealed complaints," she continued. 17 allegations of excessive force in the past 5 years, all dismissed, all involving minorities. That pattern ends tonight. You can't prove anything," he sneered, but the bravado felt hollow. "Actually," Samira reached into her jacket, producing a small black device the size of a pen, "we can. This is a tactical body recorder. Military grade, satellite uplink. It's been transmitting since the moment you approached my vehicle." She pressed a button, and Sheriff Rawls' voice played back with perfect clarity. "You people always think you deserve explanations, always demanding special treatment." The color drained from his face. "Every federal agent in special activities wears one," she explained. "Standard protocol for operations on American soil, specifically to prevent abuses of power like yours." Assistant Director Vance stepped forward. "Sheriff Denton Rawls, you are being detained under federal authority for assault of a federal officer, civil rights violations under color of law, and obstruction of national security operations. Additional charges are pending review." The enormity of his situation finally hit Rawls like a physical blow. His shoulders slumped as the agents guided him firmly toward the waiting Suburban. "You've made a powerful enemy today," he muttered as he passed Samira. "No, Sheriff," she replied quietly. "I've simply exposed one." 6 months later, Samira sat in the gallery of the federal courthouse in Richmond, watching as Sheriff Denton Rawls was led into the courtroom for sentencing. The trial had been swift but thorough, her testimony backed by irrefutable electronic evidence, satellite footage, and most damning of all, the testimonies of 12 Pinewood County residents who had finally found the courage to speak about their own encounters with the sheriff. U.S. Attorney Caroline Danvers had built an airtight case, exposing not just the assault on Samira, but a pattern of abuse stretching back nearly a decade. What had begun as one impulsive act of violence had unraveled an entire system of corruption. Judge Marshall Bennett adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the sentencing documents. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of the moment palpable. "Sheriff Rawls," the judge began, his voice firm but not unkind, "you stand before this court, having been found guilty of assaulting a federal officer, civil rights violations under color of law, and obstruction of justice. The evidence presented against you has been overwhelming and unequivocal." Rawls stood stiffly in his orange jumpsuit, eyes fixed straight ahead. "What troubles this court most deeply," Judge Bennett continued, "is not just the assault itself, but the betrayal of the trust placed in you by your community. A badge is not a shield from accountability, but rather a symbol of its highest standard." From her seat, Samira could see the back of Rawls' neck reddening, the only visible sign of his emotion. "This court sentences you to 7 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 5 years. Your pension is forfeit, and you are permanently barred from serving in any law enforcement capacity within the United States." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Samira remained still, her expression neutral despite the sense of closure washing over her. As Rawls was led away, his gaze briefly met hers across the courtroom. There was no remorse there, only defeated anger. Samira didn't look away. She owed him no concession, not even the comfort of her averted eyes. Outside the courthouse, Deputy Mercer, now acting Sheriff Mercer, approached her on the steps. "Agent Ellis," he said, extending his hand, "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" she asked, shaking his hand firmly. "For showing us what real justice looks like," he replied. "Pinewood County's been under Rawls' thumb for so long, most of us forgot what the job is supposed to be about." Samira nodded. "The hard part's just beginning, Sheriff Mercer. Changing a culture is harder than changing a leader." "I know," he admitted, "but at least now we have a chance." The autumn sun cast long shadows across the courthouse steps as Samira descended, her mission in Pinewood County finally complete. No fanfare, no medals, no public recognition, just the quiet satisfaction of systems working as they should. This wasn't about one punch thrown by one racist sheriff. It wasn't even about the satisfaction of seeing Rawls face consequences. It was about the ripple effects, the newly established Civilian Oversight Board in Pinewood County, the pending investigations into 3 neighboring departments, the voices that had been silenced for years finally finding the courage to speak. Real change doesn't always announce itself with thunderclaps and headlines. Sometimes it arrives in the steady application of justice, in the courage to stand firm when compromise would be easier. Because in the end, justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. And it begins with those willing to demand it, even when they stand alone. If you enjoyed today's story, like, share, and subscribe for more justice stories like this.